In this video, we're going to talk all about the sky in the realm leading to the Nightlord boss fights. The large black gash in the sky is certainly strange, but underneath it is something stranger still. This large oval entity, which seems to almost be hanging from the sky, suspended by this light teal-gray energy. This video will rely heavily on visual evidence to interpret the meaning of this sky, which I think is okay because we really only have visual evidence to go off of. No game text mentions anything about this crazy sky, even though it's the wildest thing that appears in Nightreign, in my humble opinion. I have a hypothesis for what this is. It looks the most like an embryo. Compare the sky to this picture of a human fetus growing within the uterus. The egg is even suspended from the sky, like how an egg implants in the side of the uterus after being fertilized. The entire thing is very womb-coded. Let me outline the significant features. The outer border of the embryo, the curve of its body inwards, the eye, the nose, and lastly this black hole in the center here. There's a visual pattern in the game connected to embryos and infants. This oval-shaped pattern that curves inwards, like the shape of a bean. Renala's amber egg, the larval tears, the serpent's amnion, and the cut content asemi items all have this bean shape and pattern and are associated with birth or rebirth. You can also see it in the horned bairn and toxic mossling. The horned bairn is a fetish made to memorialize young born with oversized tangled horns who died, and the toxic mossling is described as round and plump, like a darling infant. The entity in the sky and all these items have this same inwards curving shape and relate to infants. Notably, these two items have a small hole in the center of the curve. Not only does it help distinguish the embryo's bean shape, there's a functional purpose. This whole feature further connects it to items associated with birth and rebirth. The raw burrow and bondstone also have the bean shape with a central hole. The raw burrow is a bit more abstract, but it isn't oval and has a hole. The bondstone is circular in shape, but you can see how it curves together into a shape similar to the toxic mossling. The bondstone happens to also look like a spermatozoa, the male reproductive cell. It's described as a burrowstone and is the polished form of a special kind of crystal, the spirit calculus. You insert a spirit calculus, an item infused with spiritual essence, into the middle hole of a raw burrow, thus creating a sprite stone. If you take the bondstone to be symbolic of the sperm and the raw burrow to be symbolic of the egg, combining them is symbolic of fertilization. Hence why Selen's primal glintstone has an embryo in the center of the raw burrow-esque glintstone. The primal glintstones are a more sophisticated version of the sprite stone process. The astrologers are descended from Ra and inherited the knowledge of how to imbue spirit into stone, which is how and why, in essence, a primal glintstone is a sorcerer's soul. This is part of a larger pattern which Scummage Infa dubbed souls in holes. A burrow is a hole an animal nests in. Here, it's where the spirit resides. The hole acts as a spiritual anchor, as described by the Shattered Stone Talisman, which bears some visual resemblance to the raw burrow. Our runes are our souls, and at their center is a black hole, anchoring the golden substance, the golden runes. More generally, if you don't buy that it's an embryo, at the very least I think it's reasonable to say that it has the shape of an egg. It's reminiscent of Miquella's cocoon, or the eggs we find in the halig tree. I wanted to talk this process through fully to demonstrate to you how fleshed out this bean-shaped embryo and hole for soul pattern is in the game, and how these patterns are representative of birth and rebirth. Ultimately, the point is that this strange thing in the sky shares these same patterns. It has the same bean shape complete with the hole for its soul. It just kinda looks like a chicken embryo or egg in my opinion. The game devs had some reason for designing it this way, And I think this explanation is why. So why an egg? What could this represent or symbolize? This being may represent the cosmic egg or world egg. The cosmic egg is a mythological motif found in many cultures' myths. The egg, when hatching, either gives rise to the universe itself or a primordial being who creates the universe. The myth is reflected in the Latin proverb, omne vivum ex ovo, or all life comes from an egg, and is one answer to the oldest question in the universe: which came first, the chicken or the egg? The cosmic egg sort of has a similar role to the world tree in other mythologies, in the sense that they both represent the world or universe in its entirety. A famous motif associated with the world tree is the world serpent wrapping itself around the trunk of the tree. The world egg is sometimes depicted in the same manner. The egg is the entity from which the universe is born, whereas the world tree is typically depicted as the entity where the various worlds exist within the branches. You can relate the two by thinking of the world egg as the seed into which grows the world tree. This entity may not be the world egg, but a specific world egg, creating a particular realm. Reddit user Ismail Moroso pointed out that the hypothesized head of the creature kinda looks like the moon presence from Bloodborne. The moon presence is one of the eldritch, godlike Great Ones who inhabit the plane of pure thought and who create the various dream realms from their mind. The moon presence is the Great One which created and rules over the hunter's dream. More specifically, it was created by the communion between a mortal mind, Lawrence, and the dead infant Great One child of the vile Blood Queen. So not only is it a Great One, but a dead infant Great One, which is responsible for the dream. And though it's referred to as a dream, it's actually a nightmare, which we know because when you defeat Moon Presence, you get the message, Nightmare Slain. Dead infant Great Ones dream up nightmare realms. If this parallel is legit, then this egg thing may be akin to a dead infant Great One, and it may be responsible for dreaming up this realm, which could be called a nightmare. I find this an incredibly appropriate connection for a game all about the night. The likeness to the moon presence specifically suggests that the egg may have a connection to the moon, which would not be out of the realm of possibility for Nightreign, considering how the Nightreign depicts this rippled pattern in the shape of the crescent moon, and the Nox who worshipped the black moon are heavily connected to the game overall. It's also worth pointing out that there's likely a connection between this egg and the Nightlords. Obviously, this realm is where the door to the Nightlord boss fights are. The egg appears in the sky directly above the door, but as you approach it, the egg is hidden directly behind the door, visually almost looking like the door would open to reveal the egg. Symbolically, this perspective is equating the egg with the Nightlords. If we were looking for a young being which may link to this egg embryo thing in the sky, and also has a connection to the Nightlords, the game provides us with one potential suspect: the infant, the shadow hatchling birthed by the recluse. The game hints at a parallel between the infant and the Nightlord. Iron Menial recounts a historical record of an attack by the infant, in which describes teeth marks and bodies left behind in its wake. The tooth marks of the creature resemble the pattern seen on the night shards. Recluse writes the following comment remarking on the vestige of night and night shard. Both radiate an ancient magic which I myself imbued, suggesting she has a link to the Nightlord and his power. The Iron Menial receives the bone-like shard from the Nightlord in a dream, though he says, "Well, I didn't see our foe per se, but I know it to be true." Yet Recluse writes in her journal, "The infant's voice can be heard when softly touching the stone." We also only see one way that a Nightlord is created. Wilder is reborn as the Nightlord using a silver tear. The silver tear kinda looks like the infant, and this may be a visual pattern suggesting that the original process to create the Nightlord involved a similar silver tear-looking-like being. It will take a full investigation into how the recluse, infant, and Nightlord are all connected, and if the infant really is the Nightlord, and I have plans to do this. But for now, I hope this is enough to suggest that this thing in the sky may be part of this puzzle as well. If we are right that this thing in the sky is indeed an egg or an embryo, then I have another crazy thought. Part of me wonders if this black gash is its umbilical cord. In our other evidence, we always see the umbilical cord on the stomach side, which would be the bottom of the bean shape, not the top. But the black gash does connect directly to the egg. Umbilical cords have been used before in the lore. In Elden Ring, there's a cut content item, Entwining Umbilical Cord, a mysterious circular object that's oddly warped. And in Nightreign, there is the Cord End, a carefully woven cord that references young girls. This one may just be a woven cord, but it looks awfully like an umbilical cord, possibly meant to be an imitation. Bloodborne also has cord objects which are collected from dead infant great ones. Thus, I think we're justified in discussing the possibility that this represents a sort of umbilical cord for this strange entity in the sky. If the blue-black curved fissure in the sky is symbolizing an umbilical cord, what does this mean? An umbilical cord provides nutrients to the growing egg. A black rift is a hallmark of items associated with the Rune of Death. Check out Malekith's Black Blade, the Rune of Death itself, the Black Knife, and the Blasphemous Claw, which has been imbued with traces of the Rune of Death. I'll also note that the curve is in an S shape, which is associated with items connected to the Knight of Black Knives and the Nox, the Fingerslayer Blade, the Black Knife, and the Black Knife print. We can see the shape of the rift better in the game clock at the start of the third day. It looks a lot like the curse mark of death, as well as objects that have been stabbed by knives imbued with the Rune of Death, Ranni's two fingers, and the bodies of Ranni and Godwyn. If you ask me, it looks like the sky has been stabbed in the same manner, and now bears the curse mark of destined death. What is the role of this rift? Assuming that it is indeed meant to be reminiscent of items imbued with the Rune of Death or the curse mark of death, I think this means that it's functioning like the Rune of Death does. The Rune of Death not only absorbs HP, but reduces it. In Elden Ring, heat, life force, HP, and the color red are all closely associated with one another, whereas blue is associated with ice, cold, night, and death. This might explain what's going on with the sky here. Heat transfers along a gradient from warmer areas to colder areas. Check out the frostbite status effect symbol. It's a black gash, but the middle is colored red, possibly representing the absorption of heat by a colder area. This could be indicative of the swirling red energy being heat and life force, which is being used to feed the cosmic egg. Because a black rift is a hallmark of death, perhaps we could say that death is being used to feed this cosmic egg. Alternatively, this black gash may instead be called a fissure, and the explanation for it may relate to Caligo's nickname, Fissure in the Fog, which may sort of support the conclusions here, considering how the theory is that the black gash is a cold rift, sucking out heat from its surroundings, and Caligo, the Fissure in the Fog, is an ice dragon. Finally, there may be some clues to be found through examination of the tree below the egg. This tree has been broken open in a way that reminds me of how the Erd tree is broken open in the Frenzied Flame ending, when the flame of frenzy escapes and rises into the sky, wreaking havoc on the world. The visual parallel may suggest that this creature was also born from within this tree, having been birthed when the tree broke open. Additionally, it's broken open into a chalice shape. Seeing this shape and thinking of the embryo as an egg or a seed, it sort of reminds me of the Crimson and Cerulean Seed talismans +1. Each are patterned after an Erd tree seed, And the artifact also depicts the two fingers, perhaps harking back to the birth of the Erd tree. This symbolism appearing in the sky here may be a reference to the birth of the egg. This video doesn't answer all of the questions about what this entity is, but hopefully it provides you with some good ideas and leads for future theory crafting. I would love to hear your ideas in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video and feel that it contributes positively to the Elden Ring community, please leave a like to help boost its visibility within YouTube's algorithm. To support the channel, please subscribe. My fellow Nightfarers, thank you for watching. See you in the next video.